Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing convenes this budget hearing. Budget hearing notices were given to the media on Friday. The first notice was given on May 31st, second was on June 6th, and today is June 11th. This budget hearing is now called to order and it is now 9:01. The committee will hear and accept testimonies both oral and written on the following, which is the Department of Corrections budget. Joining me today is the Oversight Chair for the Department of Correction is Senator Jose Piru Terlahi to my left, and to my right is Senator Will Castro. The conduct of this budget hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying we will recognize in the order of sign up on the sign-in sheet, but we will start with whoever the director would like to have start first, okay? Then written testimonies may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized. I won't require you to have only 5 minutes. You can speak as long as you want. Just don't drag it, okay, ma'am? Okay, written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimonies shall be confined to the substance. We're only talking about your budget, so please provide us all the information we may need to assist you. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony. I have a script here that says only once, but I'll allow you to speak as many times as you need. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, as may be desired by members of the panel. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing for the proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony or may be asked to leave or be escorted, removed from the room. Fair warning, not following proper form and decorum, you will not be considered to be removed, you will be removed. We will just end that part. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name. We will now begin hearing testimony, but before we start that, I would ask the Oversight Chair if he wanted to make any comments before we begin the testimony. Senator Lai.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank you all for sharing this wonderful moment for all of us so that the Department of Correction can really make their operation and activities be financially sound. And if there's anything that the budget man can do, just refer whatever concern you have to him and also to myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. Ma'am, we will begin with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Buenas and half a day. Chairman San Agustin, Senator Terlahi, Senator Castro, and other members who may join us for the Committee on Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Department of Corrections Fiscal Year 2020 budget request. My name is Samantha Brennan, Director of Corrections. I must apologize, I'm a bit under the weather and my voice is slightly off, but I would definitely do my best. Please allow me to introduce my managers. My Deputy Director, Joey Terlahi, our Warden, Alan Borja, Major Anton Uggan, Chief Parole Officer, Michael Canata, is over here, and Casework Administrator, Teresa Tayama, and our Forensic Section, Dr. Patricia Tamago, and of course our ASO, Ms. Avita Nauta. The department's mission is the prevention of escape, to maintain order, and to ensure a safe and humane environment for those who are required to keep in custody to protect the public from the destructive actions as law offenders. Maintaining a safe and orderly institution is only possible through the compliance of rules and regulations and sufficient funding to sustain operations and improving existing resources such as strong workforce, equipment, and facilities. The Department of Corrections is seeking for fiscal year 2020 appropriation level of $24,395,508 for its operations. The sum of $22,855,875 is requested from the general fund and 1.539,633 is requested from the Corrections Revolving Fund and Safe Streets Fund. Approximately $17,151,363 is for personnel, $766,891 for overtime, and $4,937,621 is for operational costs and utilities. It should be noted that about 60% of operations costs under the Corrections Revolving Fund are for services provided for medical and dental services for inmates and our detainees. The remaining are contractual services, supplies, and equipment costs for DOC to provide support to the department in meeting its core duties and responsibilities. I'd like to point out that overtime requested will not be sufficient to sustain for the whole fiscal year if we do not hire additional officers. For fiscal 157,914, and we have expended a total of $1,711,560 from October 2018 to May 2019, which is over what was requested. Funding was utilized from two special funds, our fiscal year tax amnesty and fiscal year 17 our SCAP grant, our State Criminal Alien Assistance Program grant, to meet this obligation. To meet the budget ceiling, the following uniform positions were unfunded: 3 correction officers 3, 7 correction officer 1, and 1 medical records clerk. The budget staffing pattern reflects currently filled positions and approved vacancies, and reflects only the salary increments in accordance with the Government of Guam Competitive Wage Act of 2014. BBMR cleared a total of 23 GG1s for recruitment of Correction Officer 1 positions, 4 for reemployment, 2 for a limited term appointment. We are currently working with GOA to fill these positions. In addition, we funded the following administrative positions to fulfill our administrative needs, and they will be assigned throughout the department. We're asking for a clerk 3 to go into our casework office, who has no administrative help. A chemical dependency treatment specialist 2 to go into our forensic section to help Dr. Timenglow. 2 parole officers who are greatly needed to assist in our parole office. 2 administrative assistants, 1 for the parole office and 1 for the director's office. A personnel officer for the director's office and a payroll clerk. Our current administrative persons that work there are doing more than one share or other collaborated duties. We are looking for social worker 2 to go into our casework office, and a program coordinator 2 for our director's office to assist us to work towards grants. We are requesting for a $2,469,941 for a DOC food services contract, which remains status quo, even with the anticipated rise in the cost of food services. In fiscal year 2019, the same amount was appropriated. The total amount may increase or decrease when the IFB is completed by July of 2019. In addition, the Guam Memorial Hospital Consolidated Agreement was also appropriated $2,469,941 in fiscal year 2019. The budget remains status quo even with additional GMH mandates. For fiscal year 2020, funding for the GMH Consolidated Agreement in the amount of $2,469,941 will be covered by the Department of Interior Compact Assistant Grant for fiscal year 2020. However, there will still be a shortfall of $905,205. At this time, I'd like to have our Warden Alan Bora present on the operations of our ACF and our Agana detention facility. We're supposed to have a PowerPoint. Warden.
Okay. Good morning, Senators. I'm Alan Bora, Prison Security Administrator. Up in the screen, we're going to have our PowerPoint, and I would just like to read off on it, if we can proceed on. Next slide, yes. Next slide, please. Hey, uniformed personnel, authorized correction detention officers for FY19 funded, unfunded, 248. I'm just going to read off of this PowerPoint. Really, January 2017, 235 officers. June of 2018, 196 officers. 2 are limited term disability, 10 military deployment. FY 2019 funded, 226 security personnel. FY 2019 unfunded, 22 security personnel. Just dating back, FY 2017, we lost 21 officers due to resignations, termination, and or retirement. 2018, we lost 22 for the same reasons. I'm tracking as of this FY 19, 13 officers. I'm looking at possibly 2 more retiring at the end of this year. We have 31 officers assigned to the support sections. Again, this is a vital part of our operation. We have 6 officers assigned to the transport section. Again, they take care of our court runs on a daily basis, medical, dental, whatever arises. We have 7 officers at the VPC section, Visitors Processing Center. And they average about 30 to 50 visitors a day, from vendors to professionals to inmates' families. So again, we have a breakdown on where these officers are at, and these are critical part of our operation. As you can see, the pay tail, computation, again, special watch, GMH, again, when this arises, we need to assign an officer up there. That's unforeseen. We have one that's assigned to Homeland Security, one at training, one at supply, intake, property, library. It goes on. Next slide, please. Okay. Next slide. So the adult correctional facility and the Agustin detention facility. ACF, adult correctional facility, total prison population is 503 males. Breakdown 466 males, and females 37. Again, these numbers fluctuate. Within the past year, we jumped almost an increase of 100. Right, Major Agustin? We have 34 officers assigned on a daily basis to cover 16 units plus hospital stays. And again, that's low numbers to adequately manage our housing units. We have the Agustin detention facility. Right now, the current population there is 187. 187. So we do have a daunting task ahead of us that's really overpopulated. We have a total officer assigned down there is 6 to cover the 2 units. So total prisoner on island as of today, 690. That's inmates and detainees. We have 13 currently serving off island. Next slide, please. So you can see this is our breakdown of our various units that need to be manned. So it goes, for example, central control, current staffing is 1, SOP. 2, SOP requires 2. Okay, so as we go on, you're going to see that the numbers, current staffing and the SOP required does not even come close. So in essence, we need 39, actually 71 officers. Next slide, please. About 71 officers to adequately run the main facility and Agustin. Right now, up at ACF, on average, we have about 22, 25 officers on shift to run the main facility, just the housing units alone. And really, we need like around 40 officers on duty. When I say 71, I'm talking about running the Agustin facility, the units inside the compound at the ACF and outside our perimeter. Our perimeter right now, and I'm going to say it's vulnerable. We don't have the staff to adequately manage that perimeter. If you have any questions, just feel free to jump in. Next slide, please.
Colonel
Yes, sir.
Borja, I just got a simple question for you and the director. I'm looking at the budget request that was submitted, this thick packet. Total amount you asked for 24 million, 2 million less. So far, you seem to be identifying you should be back at 26, or if not more. And I know that there's a ceiling that the governor requires you. Can you submit a supplement to your oversight that can, and to myself, so we can see how we can adjust the budget request you got?
Absolutely.
Because it's not fair. The slides you're presenting, is great. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. They see all kinds of shortage all over the place. And I know a lot of the folks, I mean, I know most of you folks here. And I know a lot of the folks that are your employees up there. I know there's a shortage. And I'm just trying to understand how do you manage if you don't even have enough people? And you can't cut down on overtime if you don't have enough people. And if you have a need, it's no different as how they're giving you your overtime checks. Well, why don't they just get you more folks so you can reduce the number of overtime checks come out? I think that would make more sense. And I want to make sure that as you go along with your slides,
Well, Senator, I pretty much just want to just cut through the chase here of all this slides here. Like you just pointed out, the bottom line is we're short.
majorly.
Majorly. Yes, we dropped significantly in overtime, but it's because we went from 5 and 2 work schedule, 12-hour shift, to 4 and 3. So if you look at that, 4 and 3, that means we're spreading our officers out pretty thin.
Yeah, you're going to burn them out very soon. I mean,
Exactly, sir.
And that's not the way to do business.
And I understand it's always the issue controlling overtime, whether it be here or even stateside prison. Let's face it, not too many people want to walk our shoes. That's why you have a lot of officers walking out on us. That's fine.
Yeah.
But we're not raising the flag at this moment and surrender. We're here again to ensure public safety and the safety of the officers and the incarcerates that we watch over. But that's the bottom line. We're short. I've been before this Senate the past few years, and it's, again, the simple solution is just we ask for your support before something really grave happens up there. We even had to stand on our special ops.
Yes, I'm aware of that. And
Yes.
that's unfortunate.
It's our dedicated unit to address any issues that may arise, but that's how grave our situation is. I'm telling you, and I shared it with the leadership here, they understood. If something breaks out up there, the only one that's going to respond is me and Major Algun at times. I'm going to gas up if I even get up to that top unit. And every second minute counts when we respond to an emergency. And I'm not reading through this. This is all, honestly, same old song and dance. I'm just being real here. I've been there 34 years. Okay. Again, I plead for you. I plead on behalf of all the officers, the good men and women that are working up there, the support staff here. These are vital folks. Forensic, casework. But again, even their section is short. I'm even getting goosebumps. I'm not supposed to express that because I'm the warden. But I'm just being real. We really need the help. And again, our leadership here is really on top of things. It's just that it's not happening quick enough.
Well, I just hope the other agencies doesn't feel offended when I say that as a former police officer, and the oversight chair is also a former police officer, I'm very sensitive when it comes to peace officers, corrections, the police department, the fire department, anything to do with saving lives, protecting the people of Guam. And that's the note that I will leave with you, and hope that after you finish your slides and the questions that the panel up here have for you, I would get that information soon. Okay, Director? You know where I'm coming from, right? I'm giving you the hint.
Absolutely.
Get it to me, get it to Senator Terlai, and then let's see, and we'll sit down, and we'll come of a, I don't want to say compromise. My OFB director sitting over there saying, oh boy, he's going to give up some money. No, we're going to be realistic. We're going to take a look at what is available and see how we can divvy it up. Because when somebody takes off from DOC and you have to send your folks out to look for them and everybody's looking for them, the people of Guam are wondering, do I need to lock my doors again? Do I need to close do I need to basically, gosh, I'm not even going to go any further, but we'll just continue with your slides so that the people of Guam can hear exactly the problem you're dealing with, because I'm hoping that somewhere in the slides that the department's going to start talking about where possibly to build a new Department of Correction, and that there's a rehabilitation program going on, so when people leave there, they don't want to go back. That's the key. It's a Department, if it's a prison, then let's find an island to put the prisoners in there. If that's what they need to be, then lock them up and let's forget about them. But when we're talking about people that are going to get released, and when my OFB director is part of the parole board and he has to deal with Mr. Kanata every now and then, you know, those are things that I'm very concerned about. All right? Please continue.
Yes, so I'm sorry. Again, I'm just going to move on to the next slide, please. As you can see, to cover all bases, our current staffing is 70. I'm talking about the interior, exterior, self-explanatory, the security support sections. SOP required is 108. Those are scary numbers. Next slide, please. And this is our command staff right here, 6, to manage 174 personnel and 690 prisoners in an outdated facility. And as far as building another new facility, let's face it, not too many people want a prison in their backyard. It's like the ordered dump. Nobody wants one in their backyard. But we live within our means. Next slide, please. This is our central processing center. As you can see, the amount of prisoners that are filtered through this particular section. We got 4,161. And of course, we get those releases. But we average 12 to 15 a day. And again, like this number has doubled in the last 10 years. Next slide, please. Of course, we all know the halfway house here. They support numerous projects out here in the community. There are a positive note to the community. They represent the Department of Corrections, and of course, they save us thousands of dollars. I believe currently they're also engaged with the Liberation Carnival as well, just to show you, give you guys an idea of what these folks do.
Colonel Bora, I'd like to also find out exactly, we would like to know how many schools you're cutting grass, how many villages you're supporting and cutting grass and helping the maintenance, because there's money out there that they're getting. And if you're doing it, and it's obvious, I'm hearing already that you're doing it for free, maybe you get a meal, that's not gonna cut it for me.
Yeah.
You need additional people, and that's what I'm trying to relate to you. Okay?
Well,
we need to know all that information.
Okay.
Currently, with the village mayors, we are not servicing any of the schools at this point. Yeah, before we got on board, there was some concerns that was brought up about DOC's halfway house, individuals performing services to the schools. But since we got on board, we've assessed it, and with the new information that we got, what you just had mentioned, that we no longer service the schools, and that was an understanding with the Mayor's Council Director, Mr. Angel Sablan, and we're moving forward without servicing the schools at this point.
But Mr. Chalai, you've identified road projects. See, all the projects you're doing when it comes to beautification, there's agencies that are getting paid to do that. And if I'm correct, you're not receiving a single penny other than maybe a free meal to do it. And that just doesn't cut it.
Well, I like just...
Okay, I just want to make sure we make it very clear. You need to let us know what you're doing that you're not getting funding for. That's what I'm just very concerned about. It's got to match up.
Yes.
Somebody's got the money, but you're doing the work. That's not going to work. Okay? We're going to have to just change that a little bit. And if the mayors are doing the roadside cutting, then put some people out there. Because if I'm correct, they got community service folks that are supposed to be out there. But if you're doing it, then we want to know. If you're doing any parks, we want to know. There's funding that the government finds that little money to give them. But if you folks are doing it, and you guys are, I mean, I've seen your folks out there, they do a great job. They actually do a better job than, I hate to say that, but from the other folks. But I just want you to be able to identify it, let us know, so that when my staff sits down and we start to take a look at how much it's costing the agencies that are funded, and I hate to say this, but redirected. I asked that last year, my last term, for the Department of Corrections to identify all the areas you guys are cutting grass. It ain't free. You're paying for a person to go out there, you're paying for your vehicle, you're paying for everything. And if all you're getting is a free meal, it's going to change. Okay? Those agencies can pay for their own meals. But you need folks to make sure nobody runs away from cutting grass. And make sure that that officer that leaves the compound to watch them out there doesn't short your personnel in the compound. Okay? And that's what I just wanted to bring up. And before I go on, I'd like to also recognize the additional senators that have joined me, Senator Moylan, Jim Moylan, and Senator Luis Muñoz. Colonel, please continue.
Slide, please. Next slide. Again, as I touched earlier in the special operations response team. This is one of our vital unit as far as security is concerned. As you can see, what they would typically do on a daily basis. Random security searches, respond to prisoners' disturbances, facility security searches, conduct census count, prisoner evacuations, prisoner high-risk escort, medical emergency, staff security checks, arrest and apprehension, facility emergency, security shakedowns, cell extractions, hostage recovery riots, prisoner security alerts. Again, because of the shortfall, we had to stand them down and try to manage this shortfall. And again, yes, to reduce overtime, but at a stake, at a risk. But again, we're not raising the white flag. We just ask for that support personnel. Next slide, please. Again, these are just identifying the various housing units. There's 18 housing units, just to include Hagatna facility. These are units that house our prisoners, 18. Next slide, please. So just a continuation. In addition, again, we have that post 13 and 13 alpha, which is GMH and Guam Behavioral. Again, at any given time, when we have to house a prisoner up there, we have to send an officer up there. That takes away from our manning. Next slide, please. On a positive note, though, we've advanced ahead in our game as far as education-wise. We filtered quite a few officers to the apprenticeship program. And again, we got ongoing training. We even have a tracker training that's coming up next week. Right, Mr. Trai? Yes, so, and then we're also reaching out to the other agencies. So in spite of looking like we're down and out, we're still trying to keep things running and making sure it, showing that it doesn't faze us a bit. But again, next slide. In closing, I just want to say something in closing that, again, I ask that you support the requested, maybe even an increase on the budget. Sa leche. It's getting a little rough up there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, before we proceed, I think Ms. Tayamas, you're next, right? Well, does any of the panel want to ask questions? Because I don't want to lose their train of thought to keep you hot on your seat. Okay, Senator July, do you have anything you wanted to ask? And then we'll.
I got a lot.
But actually, just to the warden first, and then you can ask each one because each one have a set of slides.
Let me just say that I want to thank our chairperson here, Senator San Agustin, because in the beginning of his, putting out, some of the things that you have introduced, this is the first time that I've seen Joe San Agustin coming out with this statement coming from the director is full of shortfalls. And when you look at the activities that DOC is doing, there's no way that you can meet the activities and the operation and satisfy the what you need to do at the Department of Correction. And with that, I want to thank the director of the Department of Correction for taking the challenge, and Joy Terlai as the deputy for taking the challenge, because I'm telling you, this is not an easy job that you guys are undertaking. So some of the things that, Joe, do you mind if I ask questions? And Mr. San Agustin, Senator San Agustin is right that if you have that shortfall, I need to know. And I'm saying that my colleagues will support me in the additional funds that we need, but we have to really justify that by the numbers. One of the things that I wanted to bring up this morning is the numbers of detainees that you have, and I think you have like 200 some detainees.
We have 275, sir, detainees.
275, and the expense of those detainees are borne out of the Department of Correction funding.
Yes,
And
sir.
the thing is, as we go forward, I would like because those detainees are under the court. And I've talked to Joey about this because is there any commitment or any conversation or any interaction that happened between DOC, the director, and the deputy director with the court in regards to having the court fund the 270 some detainees? You have not? So this is what our chairperson and I will do. We will bring in the court, the people at the court that are responsible, and we're going to have to talk about that because you know what, 271 detainees, and even for medical and all those things, the food that they eat, is draining out your budget. And like I said, there's, you're over inundated with a whole lot of activities up there, and you need those funds. And if we don't do that, I don't know if the court would allow us to grant that request to finance the expense that you guys do for the detainees. And we need to do something like that. Also, because I do have the testimony, and I have prepared some questions that I wanted to come about this morning. Who is responsible for the taking care for the payments of medical services? DOC, I would believe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's one. That's one that we need to consider because, looking at the statistics, there's just so many that goes back and forth to the hospital, to the clinic, and all that. And we need to really reconsider that. I need to know really how much is DOC spending for these services. Also, the overtime. And let me get back to how many is in the process of recruitment for DOC officers?
Currently, we have 21 FTEs, and 4 reemployments, and then 2 LTAs we're trying to pick up. So at this point, it's almost 30 people that we're trying to recruit at this time.
So what is the holdup on the recruitment?
Currently at GOA is the process at GOA that we are waiting for.
And we did away with the LE 100?
Yes, sir.
LE 100.
We didn't
did away with that.
We didn't take it away, sir. We put it at the end of it instead of at the beginning.
Because that's the stumbling block as far as the Department of Administration is concerned. And it's good that we did away with LE 100. Or,
The EN
yeah,
100,
because
yes, sir.
not even some of the master's degree don't even pass the LE 100. So it's good that we did away with that because that's the main reason some of these applications for law enforcement, aside from the post. But I think the LE 100 is the stumbling block, not the post. And one of the things that, because how many applications do you have for application for people that are interested in assuming duties with the Department of Correction?
We were informed by the Department of Administration there's 140 applicants that are pending their process for recruitment.
And one of the things that I've learned since we started our conversation regarding the post is that, when you go to the Balea program, and that's what, almost three months, right? Almost 2.5 months, right? Or 3 months, something like that. But see, the procedure now, the system is right now, is that when you go through the Belea program, and you complete the Belea program, and then you take the test for initial entry as correction officers, and you don't pass the test, you're out of it. So what I plan to do, and I talked to Joey about this, that we need to combine the Belea training and the initial law enforcement training, and extend that to at least 6 months, because once you graduate, maybe in 6 months, they can go right into the law enforcement field. And that is the problem that we have right now. The Belea is a requirement. I don't know if we need to go to a AAA process to change that. I don't know. But I guess we need to find ways to do that, because if we don't do that, you can never come up with the required numbers of applicants to supplement the correction officers at the Department of Correction. And I know that the chair would back me on this one for additional funding, because when I look at this, the numbers that is being presented to us, the shortfall is surmounted. I'm telling you, with the activities. And we're going to try everything that we can, but I need to talk to the director and Joey on how we can do this. How much money do we need to give to the Department of Corrections, so that, sometimes I have nightmares regarding, the Department of Correction officers. The court marshals are making more than the Department of Correction. When you guys are surrounded 24 hours a day with those people that are dangerous, and I would classify them as dangerous, and the salary for the marshals is a lot higher than the salary for correction officers. Just like even DYA, they're the lowest ones. So we're doing everything we can to upgrade those salaries. I don't know if we can do it by law only, or I don't know if we can do it by the table assessment like that. Is there anything that you guys want to bring up to me, so I can start working on the things that we need to do? The thing is, we need to increase the numbers, the financial requests, the funding for Department of Correction, because I'm telling you, it's one of these days, the Department of Correction is going to have not only a crisis, but rioters up there, and I think the major and the colonel and the majors, and it's not enough to suppress the situation. So, I need that, Madam Director. I need that so we can put in the supplement for something that will sustain, some of the activities that you have for that funding. Thank you very much.
Very simple question before I ask my colleagues to ask. 2019, you asked for 26. 2020, you're asking for 24. Would it be very simple to say if you could at least get what you're getting for 2019, that would be a great start to start the year out in October?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. That's what we try to work with. Colonel, you wanted to ask for more, I know, but...
Yeah, but so just make it 30 then, and then,
Let's
for a little bit more than...
Let's try to keep a status quo of 2019 for 2020, because I'm just concerned that you've got a lot you're going to bring up. Ms. Tayama is going to be speaking very soon, and it's just going to open the floodgates, but at least if we can at least visualize, if you could maintain the budget you got for 2019, now you have to just tweak where the money will go, but if you can at least have that might be a better start than going backwards in funding, but going forward in shortage. That doesn't make sense. But Senator Moylan, did you have something you want to ask the warden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You did point out, and I don't understand really why it's less than what you previously had. It's actually 1.8 million which is pointed out in your letter. But, when we look at the other budgets, and we had to review all the other budgets too, if we look at the other people in the judiciary system, for example, let's see, Attorney General's office, right? Their budget increased by 6.7 million. Let's see here. Judiciary Guam, they're asking for 11.5 million more. And Guam Police is asking for 3.6, almost 3.7 million more from last year's budget. But all the criminals end up at DOC, right? But you get 1.8 less. So I really support what the chairman was saying. You need more money. It's so dangerous in there. I worked at Department of Corrections for 7 years. I guess I got early release. But some of you are there for a lifetime plus 5. So, but there's so much we can do if we're talking about rehabilitation, what we can do for the caseworkers, how we can help monitor on parole side, how we can consider the safety of the officers. I'm with the chairman here, and I'm with you guys. Resubmit that budget, do something, bring it up. Everybody else is asking for more money, but you're 24/7. So I want to support you with that. Please, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Don't resubmit the budget. Just tell us you want to go backwards, okay? Because I already have your budget. It's done. The governor signed off on this one, so don't go against your boss. Okay, Director?
Yes, sir.
Just give us the data and let us do our part. Senator Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions for the director, the warden, or actually anybody on the panel. And maybe the first question, most of us know the answers to, but perhaps if you could just enlighten the listening audience, it'll help build momentum towards my final question. So I have about 3 or 4 questions, Mr. Chair. Could you explain what the difference would be between a detention facility and an adult correctional facility?
I can do it. I'll take it. Okay, morning, Major Ogden here. The Department of Corrections, we are the only place on Guam that holds anybody for confinement. So unlike most jurisdictions where you have a prison and a jail separated in different areas, we run everything. So our detention are mostly for those that are on pretrial, that are arrested going through the adjudication process. They're still not found guilty yet. And so that population is about 274. And then the other 300 and something are sentenced individuals who are serving their sentence. We also hold contempt of court. Those are probation violators. We have about 30 of them. We have immigration, federal guys, parole violators. And so we are one and all. So we house everybody. And we try to separate it by detention and prisoners, sentenced individuals, but because of our design and overcrowding, I mean, we're at 690 now. We've had to move people between Agana and Manila. So Agana right now, 187, that really should be only 130. But because of, the influx, it's getting very challenging for us. And so that's what, when you have detainees and inmates kind of mixed all into one area.
Thank you, Major Ogden. That's an excellent point. So I'm just taking notes here. The capacity for the Hagana detention facility it's supposed to be at 130, but you're housing 187.
Right. We try to keep the numbers around 130 to meet the bed space that's down in that area between the two facilities, the federal detention facility and then the Agana detention facility that's down there. But right now, like I said, we're at 187.
So that's an average. Would you say, is it fair to say that that's a 40% increase over what your stated goal is on average per year, notwithstanding the year, maybe the last 5 years?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the capacity for the adult correctional facility in Manila?
Well, see, you have 2 ways of looking at it. You have the rated capacity and the design capacity. The design capacity is generally what the engineers, when they built the prison, thought of the prison could hold, and at that time it was about 300 and something. Then you have the rated capacity, is what we can safely manage, right, with the bunk beds and the space and all that. And with our domes, if we were to fill up all the domes, you're probably looking at about 700, 720.
But our design capacity, we're only about 320, I give that, when the prison was first built. And over the years, we've had to convert education buildings, not necessarily the best for housing. We've had to convert them into housing units. We have our oldest building, Post 18, that really should be torn down and should be, but we have 6 cubicles in there, and we house about 70-some prisoners in there, and it just, the place is just run down and stuff, but really we shouldn't have more than 300 something up there.
I appreciate the really informed responses. So the design capacity is 300. Now, I'm a teacher, so, you know, in educational institutions, you have accreditation standards, X amount of students and per facility, et cetera. You're governed by the Bureau of Prisons, or you're rated or reviewed or audited by the Bureau of Prisons. Is there a standard that the Bureau of Prisons publishes for, let's say, your design capacity of 300, you shouldn't exceed a certain threshold?
Well, not that I'm really aware of. I mean, they do have national standards, how much bed space an inmate should have, square footage of a cell, how much things they should have. But, you know, it's very hard to come out with an exact standard for everybody because every prison is designed different. Gotcha. And for like us, Manila sits on about 47 acres of land, and we have 18 different housing units. And so we're spread out all over that big compound there, which even makes it more hard to manage. You know, that's why we need so many officers per shift, because everybody is just pods. They're just moved out all over the compound. And so we do follow standards as far as health care, food, time out of their cells. We have recreation, religious services, and all these other activities that we are mandated to give them rather than keeping them locked up in their cells.
Thank you, Major. Just a couple more questions, Mr. Chairman, to follow up. How old would you say is the oldest facility at the adult correctional facility in Manila?
Post 18, that would probably be 1964. Post 18, and we're still using that today. Despite all its plumbing and issues, I think 1964, more than 30-some years. No, more.
That's the year I was born, so we're looking at that almost 55 years.
Yeah,
That's
55.
I don't know, that's a good thing, Warden. I had to check with the chairman if he's kono amkonyaki ilogat minsu. Lo, and then just kind of generalizing here, what would you say is the percentage of occupancy for federal offenders, both at your temporary, so a jail or the Hagåtña detention facility is designed to be a temporary holding facility. Mm-hmm. I got that. The adult correctional facility is the equivalent of a state-level prison or penitentiary. I understand that. What percentage would you say of those folks housed in either of the two facilities are federal offenders? Just if you had to kind of shoot from the hip.
I don't know the percentage, but we have about 30. Out of the 690, we have about 30 that are federal.
Okay, so that's about
That's a very
5%,
small number,
5%.
small percentage.
Okay.
And only 9, I think 9 of them are immigration.
Thank you.
So it's even a smaller number for the immigration. Yeah.
Well, the specifics, you know, you have the men, and then there is the women's facility there. They have a unit, but they house everybody. You have the detainees, the federal, the inmates, and it's overcrowded, and the design is not conducive to improve mental health. You know, when one person is loud, everybody hears it. But the specifics, I need to defer to them.
Thank you, Doctor. And Mr. Chairman, just a couple points to drive home here. One more question and 2 closing points. So, and forgive my ignorance, does the department have a master plan of some sort? I remember hearing it being referenced some time ago, and I'll take responsibility for not following up, but would you happen to know, Director, if the department has a master plan?
Currently, we do not have a master plan. We received a grant, and we're working on awarding a vendor for a master plan, and then we want to move forward from there, sir.
Thank you, and I look forward to that with the leadership. You know, Mr. Chairman, just asking some background questions and understanding fully what the economists from the university and some other instrumentalities of the government are stating in terms of the overall state of the economy as being generally flat. I want to encourage the department, and I'm willing to sit down with the chairman and the oversight chairman, the chairman of General Government Operations and the budget, to look at revenue-generating opportunities that are not historically or customarily found in a budget like this one. For example, although I can't speak for other jurisdictions, I can speak to the fact that other jurisdictions have signaled their desire at least to sit down and have a conversation, perhaps about a regional penitentiary, perhaps a regional penitentiary that's subsidized by one or more jurisdictions and or the federal government. I think one of the panelists mentioned about the limitations of space, and then the record will reflect that you have a building that's certainly older than I am. Not that that's necessarily cause for concern, but if it's 50 plus years and you're exceeding the occupancy rate, that might be cause for concern, right? And so if we have partners in the region who are willing to help pay for this and help staff this, and that they can petition the United States Congress and or the executive branch of the United States to help subsidize some of this, I think that might be a unique opportunity for us to explore, and I'll be happy to share details. I also want to ask the following questions, for which you may not have to respond now, but I'd like a follow-up with either chairman here and myself. Are there revenue-generating opportunities, sort of some kind of cost recovery mechanism, whether it's through forfeitures, and I'm not advocating for this, but I certainly would like you to think about this, kind of a fees. You know, I was watching TV a couple of weeks ago, which is rare, and the courts were imposing administrative fees for processing, I guess, of certain cases. And then I just did a quick search, and I noticed that some states are so conservative that they push a pay-for-stay fee. And I'm not necessarily advocating for that, Doctor, especially from a humanitarian standpoint, and one for rehabilitation, because it could keep someone in poverty if the cost of incarceration really was just overwhelming for somebody to bear, kind of like the cost of education, right, when you take out student loans. But I would like you to look at that. If there's an opportunity to revisit the code or work with our federal counterparts so that asset forfeitures in part or in whole can be reverted over to the Department of Corrections to subsidize their operations and or GPD. You know, I know GPD is very interested in some of those revenue opportunities. Not revenue, but cost recovery opportunities. In closing, Mr. Chairman and members of the department, this is a time that should be relatively exciting. We have a new administration who's expressed a lot of new ideas to pursue. And notwithstanding the fact that we come from opposite sides of the political spectrum, I could speak for myself, I submit that I want to work with you on these out-of-the-box ideas, especially as they relate to our regional partnerships and or cost recovery measures that can sustain, if not grow, the department, Director. And then one last question, and I don't expect an answer now in the interest of those who have other questions. If you were to fully staff, I saw somewhere in your presentation, Warden, in your PowerPoint, I just can't find the page, that the goal of the department was to reduce overtime by 50%, and so I would ask the question and follow it to page 9 of your presentation here. If you were to increase staffing by a certain percentage, how much in overtime would that reduce, and frankly, would that be worth the investment? Because I don't know how it works in the corrections field, but I don't know if your operations, your personnel costs are driven by the population, right, which could be temporary, right? Sometimes you have more people incarcerated for a period of time than not. So sometimes, in some instances, the cost of paying time and a half or overtime may be the better route than fully employing X amount of personnel full-time. And I don't know what that magic number is, but I'd like to sit at the table with you and fully explore what that means mathematically in terms of personnel costs, and if it makes good sense for the people of Guam. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Senator Muñoz, do you have any questions for the warden?
Well, first of all, I just want to say you don't have to be 55 to have plumbing problems. Also, without jumping and asking questions that maybe that has some other presentations, I'm just going to go ahead and reserve any of my questions or comments until I hear the rest of the presentations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Ms. Tayama, I know you're aching to speak. Please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators. I'm really excited to be here also and share the same sentiment as Senator Castro, because I am honored to be in the presence of 3 individual senators who have actually walked the walk. So therefore, you can talk the talk. I remember you back in the days in the 80s, and likewise, former parole officer Moylan. So I know that sitting here and going through all this information, that it speaks closely to your heart. And so I am grateful for having this opportunity to come before you and allow this forum to share with the public our need. The fact that you're sitting here encouraging us to go look beyond our proposal today is very, it makes me feel really good inside, because then I know that it's a representation of the community response, and feels really nice. Anyway, I am the casework administrator, and I am responsible for the other half of our mission, which is to assist inmates from returning to their criminal behavior and to become contributing, law-abiding members of society. Now, oh yes, can we please put up the slide presentation? Next slide, please. Thank you. So I take it really personally whenever we have to come before the roundtable discussions, whenever someone gets arrested and the public is in a big hoopla, because this is where casework and counseling comes in. We are charged with providing effective case management, supportive counseling and treatment, and also release planning and community reintegration. Given that, we all know that our recidivism rate, the guys who leave our door come back at over 50%. So just as my fellow brothers in corrections have the mission of providing security within the institution, it is the mission of casework and counseling to work with these individuals to help them so that they can stay out of our doors. Next slide, please. So, our section provides supportive counseling and treatment to help these inmates through from beginning to end, the assessment process. When they first come in, we have structured risk assessments for reoffending, where we look at their risk, need, and the recidivism rate. We also offer treatment in the form of cognitive-based intervention, and we have release preparation. And these should be completed structured assessments to provide post-release services. And this release preparation should really serve as a very helpful tool for those individuals who are going before the parole board. Next slide, please. So the breakdown of my division is you have me, the administrator, and there is a total of 7 of us in our office to handle our inmate population of 333. Currently, we have all these cases assigned except for 16 which are pending intake. We have Ms. Linda Ortiz, who is our casework counseling supervisor. She has been with the department for over 33 years. We also have Mr. Robert Dames. Many of you may know him. We are very fortunate to have him under temporary appointment to assist with the RSAT program. Then we have Mr. Mark Perez. He's our senior corrections social worker, and he serves multiple roles in the department. He is basically our IT person. He is our expert in CBI sexual offenders, and he's also one of our certified trainers for this evidence-based training. So he is the go-to all-around person. Then we have Ms. Donna Cruz, Ms. Christina Tovas, and Ms. Linda Charfris, who are also correction social workers. So there's a breakdown of our caseload there. So you can see how much, basically the load that we carry. Next slide, please. So as far as inmate classifications, last year there were 669 cases heard. 71 of them were actual disciplinary cases. These are for those inmates who broke the rules, stepped out of line, and needed to go before the ACC to look at either a demotion or some kind of pending disposition. And then we completed 127 initial classifications. The concerns that we have as far as that kind of work hand in hand with our prison population is whenever someone is assigned to a particular classification, we have these assigned posts or areas where they should be. Now, given that, we all get so creative and make do with what we can, we kind of we kind of do what we can just to work together. We're all in the sandbox. But the concerns that we have as far as the ACC is that many times when the officers are too busy or called out or activated to other responsibilities, we have a lack of a quorum. So therefore, we fall behind with those hearings. Sometimes, likewise, because of lack of personnel, our intake packets tend to come into our office not on a timely matter. And then due to the overcrowding, our inmates are not properly housed where they should be. Next slide. We have 10 programs that we facilitate on a regular basis. However, because of our staff, because of the number of personnel we have, only 31% of our clients are serviced. How much do we want to provide? We want to provide 100%, and we want to do our best. And I know that when the question was posed earlier to the Colonel with regard to why we are not asking for more, I think when you look at the Department of Corrections, we're just used to being the bastardized component of law enforcement. We're kind of like the beat down stepchildren. And so therefore, we kind of take what we can get. But I'm here today with our director and the rest of the management to say, by God, we deserve to be on top of the echelon with everybody else. And we're grateful that you are helping us along with that to build us up. And we know that if we provide the best service at 100%, we can greatly have an impact in reducing recidivism, and we can be grateful knowing that we've done our part. Next slide, please. So we don't do it all alone. We rely on the help from our other partners. We have the judiciary, which prior to Director coming on board, we work closely with her with regard to implementing the ORAS and the Reentry Court of Guam. We also work with GCC with our adult education program. We work with the Guam Humanities Council on 2 programs. One is Mother Read, Father Read, and then we have an ongoing project called Community Conversation project for RSAT, and thanks to Mr. Bob Dames for having brought that in for us. We also have Healthy Families, Healthy Relationships via WestCare. We have the Trades Academy, the Correction Public Works Program. Of course, we have our Spiritual Praise and Worship Service. We have the Archdiocese of Agana participating, as well as Prison Fellowship Guam, which is all the Protestant denominations, and then the Jehovah's Witness. We have about 50% of our inmate clients who participate in that, and we have about 33 inmates who currently receive one-to-one counseling. We also have, of course, RSAT, our agricultural project, which is our pig farm and agriculture farm, and then we have our UOG internship program where we recently supervised 2 out of Casework, and Dr. Tamingla, I believe, had 1. And the 2 in our division graduated with their degrees in social work, so that was great. We're hoping to partner with the School of Social Work so that we can try to recruit also and maintain and bring an interest to correction social work. Next slide, please. So as you can see, with our population of inmates, 333, this is the number of actual inmates served in our programs. Next slide, please. We are so proud that the programs we do aren't just, these hunky-dory patch piece programs put together. They are actually evidence-based, and so they put us social workers on the national playing field, and we are so proud of that. Currently, we are also working toward our licensure for those of us who aren't degreed in social work. So the programs that we have are the Matrix Model, Moral Recognition, Sex Offender Treatment Program, Cognitive Behavioral Intervention Core Curriculum, and Thinking for a Change. Next slide, please. What we need as far as personnel would be what I listed there times 2, but we would need those positions to accomplish our mission, which is to have some formal policies and full implementation for the completion of formal assessments of the ORAS. So although it's still in its inception stage, we really would like to formalize that and move forward with it so that all inmates at entry and release will have a roadmap to follow. We would also like to reduce the caseload size of our current staff so that we can focus on more one-to-one counseling and offer more individualized programs that fit in with the criteria. And we would also like to conduct more regular pre-release planning. Next slide, please. This is our wish list. Next slide, please. And that's it. I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Madam Director, as I notice how there's a requested organizational chart, and my understanding is that when a budget is passed, if you have an organizational chart, that becomes a blessed organizational chart, because that's how you're going to be budgeted. So that I just recommend that if you can, I'm looking through the slides and I don't see one for, the prison in general. I guess Ms. Tayama slipped one on you there, Colonel. But that's okay. You can ask her to create one for you. I mean, since she did one, she can do it for everybody else. And I understand. But I'm just asking that if the director can create the organizational chart, then as you've identified on your site, how everybody fits into the equation, then we can actually see when you say you're short, you say in this area you're short, we can see that because it's part of the chart. And then it just makes sense because, as we look through this, okay, you're short here. And most folks that are not in too much organization, I don't want to shortchange anybody, but some folks who say, well, the numbers don't match. Let me do the math. No, you got to look at reality. You've got so many people, you need so many folks to back it. This is the way the program's going to be, and then this is how it works. And the organization chart basically depicts all that. People can actually visualize, wow, the prison is short. The Department of Correction is short. Why? Because this is how they're set up. This is where the shortfall. And when somebody mentioned riots, Senator Terlai and I were in the police department when we responded to DOC for riots. And I think my other colleagues were probably still in school at the time. So I'm not going to say that too loud for Senator Castro. But if you can, create the organization chart so we can see how you're set up, where your shortfalls are. Because you're going to be able to identify 30, 20 short, and so forth. Okay?
In our packet, if I may, we did provide one, but we will definitely look into, not in our PowerPoint, but in our packet that we provided, we will look into it and we will actually expand it.
Okay.
Because
please.
there is one, but it's very simple and stuff, so we definitely expand it. So thank you for that.
Please do, because when we pass, when the budget is finally fully submitted, I'm basically going to ask the oversight to say that this we want to recognize as the official organizational chart of the Department of Correction. Okay, and not every other department. And as Senator Moylan brought up earlier about the other agencies that are asking for more money, unfortunately, they're not under the umbrella of the governor. They stand alone, but they have to deal with all of us in the legislature. So yes, DOC will not be, I'm not even going to use the word you use, Ms. Tayama, but you will not be a different child or an orphan of the law enforcement career. You're not. I just have to be familiar. Okay? You wanted to ask Ms. Tayama? Casework? No. Okay. See, you see how I tried. He said that was his final word, but. And the next speaker would be, I think, is Ms. Timenglow. Win family. You have one. You have one question, Senator Lang?
Madam Director, we've been conversing on the commissary program that we anticipate to have up at DOC. And according to our last conversation, we talked about, we found out that we cannot lease out a government facility. So what I did actually is initiate a bill to allow the Department of Correction to lease out the facility. So, in the beginning when we started this, I think the governor's office had planned to just do an executive order. And I think that, I'm not going against the governor, but I think it's more of a benefit for if we do it by law. And I think that, and actually I was waiting for the executive order to come out so I can tailor the bill pursuant to that executive order. So I'm just waiting for that, and as soon as that comes by, we're going to go ahead and introduce the bill for the commissary. If I think we did already.
No, sir, we're meeting with you on Thursday
Okay, so
to finalize
all the,
everything.
you know, like the conversation we had about the facility being, you know, leased out, which is not permitted on, based on the Guam law. So to counter that, we did initiate a bill to authorize the Department of Correction to go ahead and be authorized to lease the facility. So we're just waiting for that. And talking about the recidivism thing, and you mentioned something like 50% of those that has been released would come back again. And I'm not sure how serious the cases are, the violation of those recidivism cases. But, you know, I had planned to really just get down and to do what we call the alternative sentencing type of thing, where we can assign some of these people to Department of Parks and Recreation, to the mayor's office, and have them sign a strict, rules and regulation in as far as going out there. Because I know that some of these people would like to spend time with the family and spend, Saturdays and Sundays with them. And I think if we do something like that and it's approved by the court, aside from, the felony cases and all that, but I think we can, those recidivism cases that comes in on less than a felony, maybe we can do something like that so we can have these people going out there and supporting, cleaning the beach areas along the roads, work with Parks and Rec, and also with the mayor's office. So these are in the making, and I just need to get the legal counsel to give me an advice on doing something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tamaglu.
Buenas and half a day. Si Dr. Tamanglo's up? Yes. Good morning. I'm here to speak on slides. Forensic mental health. The mission of the Forensic Mental Health Office is to provide mental health services to prisoners that are ethical, efficient, adequate, effective, accessible, and timely, meeting the National Commission of Correctional Health Care's standards of mental health in correctional facilities, and also meeting the community standards. Now, our vision is that mental health is to provide treatment to prisoners diagnosed with mental illness, which will empower them to function more independently, responsibly, and with self-control, thereby increasing the safety and security within the facility, as well as providing patients with skills and abilities to prepare them for successful re-entry into the community. Currently, we have staff of 3 with 1 pending hire. I'm the clinical psychologist, and I work 24/7 on call. Our office runs from Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. I have a psychiatric social worker who's full-time, a psychiatric technician that's full-time, and we're pending to hire another psych tech. And that is serving both the arrestees, detainees, and inmates. So we provide services to any of the people who are confined at DOC, not just the inmates. The population served from April 2018 to 2019, these are face-to-face encounters, is over 4,000. With each month averaging the numbers that you see in front of you that include federal and immigration. So the men, of course, are a larger percentage, with the females being a smaller representation. The next slide, please. So we provide, as As the warden had mentioned, we have arrestees anywhere from 12 to 15, sometimes more, depending on the month. And we're tasked, as part of our role, is to triage individuals that come in, typically initiated by an interview by the nurses. And we assess individuals who are considered emergency cases that need prompt, immediate attention, sometimes even direct referral to Guam Behavioral. Individuals that are urgent, first-timers, and routine. First-timers are individuals who have never been confined, and they represent the more vulnerable risk to suicide. So we provide a wide range of services and in terms of meeting those needs. I'd like to go to the next slide. One of the major roles is to provide a response, provide sick call services, and what that means is that prisoners can ask to be seen. They request to be seen, and they need to be seen. The goal is 85% within 10 days. Our numbers are very, very good right now because we're not receiving something from medical at this moment, but we're resolving it. We also receive remedy requests, and we're very good. We're at 100% as of today. Grievances, that's when they're not, we don't get any of those. We haven't had one of those. That means that they've requested a service and a service has not been provided over an unreasonable length of time. So we've been excellent at that point. Officers refer almost daily, and we do our best. Sometimes we go and see the individuals that moment, depending on what's going on, and other times we would see them later. And then we also refer to Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center if needed. And then many of those transports are related to appointments. We provide screenings, we do a mental health intake. We do a lot of what we call collateral, that's talking to people about what they see and what's going on. Both in-house as well as with Guam Behavioral and other partners, such as the court, if necessary. We do phone screenings, post-rounds, segregation rounds, and ADLs, which is really, are they functioning well enough in the facility? And if they're not, we have to identify why not, and then address that. So a number of these activities are face-to-face encounters. We also run groups. On the next slide, we provide a wide range of services. We address the needs of seriously mentally ill individuals that are at the post or in the facility at various housing units. We need to run programs in one of the housing units. The next slide. We also follow up on treatment. After we see an individual, it doesn't mean we don't see them again. It means we have to see them more often. And some people we have to see as part of therapy more frequently, depending on their treatment plan. We run a number of groups. In the last year, we ran 3 different groups with Fa'una Rising. I don't know if you've heard of that. And that's addressing the women's needs. And it's run in conjunction with women who run businesses in construction, like the National Association of Women in Construction. One is a hands-on, all-day activity. It's called Pizza Pop and Power Tools. The next one is flipping the script, and the flipping the script is actual therapy. So there were 12 women that participated last year. They also participated in construction industry technician training, education. The individuals complete their program. When they're released, they can take a national exam that will provide them with a certificate that is useful anywhere they may choose to live in terms of getting work in the construction field. We run anger management groups and therapy groups, and I look forward to starting a men's group regarding a men's group that we just got some training on. I also do pre-employment psychological evaluations and training for officers. I do 2 suicide prevention trainings as well as the mental health training. And any officer who interacts with individuals who are potentially mentally ill need to have some basic training in mental health. Next slide. You know, everyone that we see has a treatment plan, plan of action. The goal is also to prevent relapse for those who are seriously mentally ill so that they don't decompensate and harm themselves or harm others. I already spoke about the standard, but our goal is to provide treatment to empower prisoners to function more independently, responsibly, and with self-control. And as I spoke, to increase safety and security. The next slide, please. So our current staffing is a clinical psychologist in some of the duties, a psychiatric social worker. We have, it's a master's level therapist, and we have one. In the budget, we're requesting for a chemical dependency specialist. You are very aware that substance abuse and addiction is a major problem in the community, and it's estimated that over 65% of our arrestees have substance abuse addiction and or co-occurring disorder, meaning that they have an addiction, but they also have serious mental illness in addition to that. On the next slide, we typically have a correctional officer assigned to our office, but with the shortfall, I believe, you know, the warden has done a great job in trying to increase the safety in the absence of a dedicated officer to our office. The psychiatric technician is already in the process of the interviews, and historically there was a position for a medical records clerk. We don't have admin assistant, so our psych tech who's supposed to be focusing on treatment for mentally ill is also doing her primary job right now is admin. So, but if we can get the chemical dependency specialist, we'd be most appreciative. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one
Yes, sir.
simple one, Doc. The parole board has recently passed a measure requiring a psychiatric evaluations of the parolees. Are they being done? Or
Actually, that would be an ethical and legal concern, partly because I provide treatment.
okay,
So when someone provides treatment, potentially, as long as they're confined to DOC, there may be a need to provide treatment, or I have provided treatment. It would not be acceptable for me to do an evaluation of them, particularly for that need. The standard, the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare also states that such an evaluation performed by someone providing services in-house is not acceptable.
okay. So I'll save my question then for Mike when Mike does his presentation in reference to the evaluation that the board passed, so we can make sure we get the right folks answered. Thank you, Doc. No, everybody's good. Okay, so we'll move to my fellow biker, Mr. Canata. Old school folks, you know who the old folks are, 'cause we all got gray hair. Mike, you're up.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you for this opportunity. Slides, please. Next. Our mission is very simple, but it entails a lot of responsibilities. Public protection from the criminal elements of conditionally released adult criminal offenders. So I guess, I'm at the tail end. So I work with the board closely, and also we're hoping that whatever Ms. Taimalu sends her clients to, that they'll remember that when they leave the prison. Our responsibility basically, next slide, pre-pro investigation, those are the reports that are presented to the board. It's a comprehensive report. It's people akin it to the pre-sentence investigation. And the additional information that we provide probably is the important ones, or what did they do while they were incarcerated. So that pretty much bogs down a lot of responsibility, and I like to do a lot more on parole supervision, is checking the parolees out at their homes and making visits. But the pre-pro investigation is mandated by law. We have to hear the case or present it to the board at least 60 days prior to the parole release date. And that's the parole inmates' liberty interest that they be heard. We even had a caseload that went all the way up to Ninth Circuit Court. Part of our duties, as has been even before the victim's right became law, was the victim notification. So that's a priority also, that in that report we make contact with the victims if there's victims involved. And of course, presentation to the board to include whatever administrative services the board may request of the division. Like I said, I like to spend more of my time out there doing supervision of the parolees, but also as you well aware that the major thing is our shortages. Monitoring parolee for community service work. We do not send parole officers to monitor, unless it's a special weekend project, and I normally like to do that because I like going out helping the community. But not necessarily the monitoring of the work they do, but monitoring the hours and making sure that the hours are accurate, because the board has a policy that for every 20 hours of community service, they get 1 day off their parole time. So that's like an incentive if they're not working, they're unemployed, to get them out and to start doing the service. Before, they used to do community service and not get credit for it. So we do drug testing, we do high-risk parole home visits. What we try to do, if it's beyond our means and we need additional manpower, we'll usually communicate with the different precincts, wherever the house is at. And my last request a couple of months ago, I was kind of like, I understood. They couldn't help us because they were short themselves. So we kind of like either reassess how we're going to approach. Do we approach today, or we come back when there's additional manpower from the police department? Safety is always a concern for us. We do also parole warrants, and of course presenting those violations before the board. We do pardons and commutation, and since it's a new governor, all the applicants that have submitted, we tell them to resubmit because it's a different governor. We'll also work closely with other law enforcement agency if they call upon us or if we need their assistance. A lot of the assistance we've been providing is identifying suspect, looking at video cameras, if those are one of our guys. So that's extra help for law enforcement. Next slide. FY 2018, these are our accomplishments at a glance. Parole cases heard, 230. Revocation, 37. Pardon commutation hearings are 80 cases we heard. That to include the previous governor's second chance program. If you already served your time and did what you're supposed to do, whoever came before us, they were presented to the parole board. Now, this group of guys from the second chance or the pardon, they go before the pardon review board. That's through executive order, which consists of the parole board members and 4 others in the community, from someone from the clergy, member at large, the attorney general, and the director of corrections. So with the 5 board member, that's 9 total for the pardon review board. As of this month so far, we've presented 89 cases and 17 parolees were revoked. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot of our parole data from 2008. I think that's when we got computers. So to 2018, it showed the number of inmates, number of parolees, and the number of staff, or the offshore ratio. This is staff to officer ratio. In 2008, we had 9 officers, 24 to 1. That's the numbers I wish we can be at right now for the parole officers. 2018, 6 officers. The ratio was 60 to 1. 60 cases to 1 officer. That's parolees. Now the next slide, please. The ratio then was, for inmates to parole officer was 25 to 1. Now it's 63 to 1. That's inmates. Now the ratio of, next slide, please. In this particular slide, we combined it. So 2008, we had a combination of inmate and parolee at 440. The ratio is 49 to 1. Now at 2018, 6 parole officers, the ratio is 123 to 1. Now, when I say pre-parole, I'm referring to the inmates that are still incarcerated, whom we have to prepare the reports for the parole hearing. So very, very brief, quickly, and the bottom there shows the staff ratio, parolee, pre-parole. Next slide. Parole needs, I did indicate 5 officers, and I'm happy that this director is supporting us and making it an emphasis to help us with our manpower. 2 parole officers are being requested for. We really appreciate that, the parole office, and 1 administrative assistant. That will relieve 1 officer from having to do the board minutes and the board orders and things like that. That concludes my presentation, and thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, next time, Mike, when you got slides like that, don't require us to lean on the side. Come on, be Mike, Lana. We're not on the motorcycle anymore. Okay? Stand it up straight. So
Understood, sir. Understood.
Thank you, Mike. I don't think anyone had any questions. I know we have the medical side. Is the nurse here? No, right? But is this just for information purposes?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, so we'll proceed on with Ms.
We'll-
Nauta.
Yes,
I
thank you,
think
sir.
she wants to identify all her shortcomings. ASO, I mean,
Our ASO.
I'm telling you, that's a hard job, I know that. Trying to convince everybody else, hey, we don't have money. Ma'am.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you again for this opportunity to present our budget. And yes, you're right, Senator San Agustin, we are in dire need of money because we have always been covering only warm bodies just to meet the budget ceiling. As much as we want to fill all the vacant positions, we've tried. The department is more in need of upper level officers, corrections officer 2, because we have, there's some that have not been promoted. Those just some of the areas that on the officer side that needs to be.
Okay, before you go into your whole slide, I'm just gonna ask you straight up, if you were to fill your officer's position, that's the promotion across the board, huh? Because for everybody, it's gotta go up. What would it cost? Could you tell us that right now? Straight up. If you said you need 30 officers, 10 of them are correction officer 3, or sergeants, or lieutenants, or what would it cost?
I'm going to estimate about a 1 million.
Okay. Okay.
It's a good number because
Yeah, never mind the administrative side, we'll just give you the
Yeah.
correction officers and let Colonel Bora figure that out.
Yes, depending on their rate at this point
Right.
for the next
So
level.
it's about $1 million is what
I'm
you
going to
need.
safely say a good number will be 1 million.
Now, that 1 million would also include folks for the parolees, correct? I mean, this is the whole Department of Correction, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
everything.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So again, good morning, thank you. I'm presenting for the administrative duties of the DOC, which is the Director's Office. We provide oversight, supervisory, and directional control over the administrative and operation activities. I'm sorry, next slide, please. Next one, all the way. Next. Next one. Okay, thank you. Again, under the direction of the Director of Department of Corrections, DOC personnel ensure public safety for the people of Guam and safety and control of inmates and detainees in DOC custody. Next slide. Our responsibilities under the administrative support, we have finance, personnel, payroll, supply management, which includes procurement for requisitions and purchase orders. And we also maintain the Bureau of Prisons for the prisoners off island. There's 13 of them. Next slide. Okay, the Administrative Services Unit, we're staffed with 1 administrative assistant, one word processing secretary 2, myself, an ASO, and a messenger clerk. We are tasked with all those duties just between the 3 of us individuals. We also receive court documents. We disseminate the court documents wherever it needs to. If it needs forensic, if it needs transport, we take care of all of that. We also process the department's payroll. We coordinate personnel programs. We ensure, again, like I said, documents are expeditiously processed and maintained with regards to promotions, hires. We prepare requisitions for supplies and equipment. We ensure payment of invoices are processed and purchase orders. We prepare the requisitions for any supplies and equipment that the department needs to procure. Again, the billings comes in, we request for direct payments so that vendors and medical vendors are paid for services rendered. We prepare the fiscal budget like what we have right now. The director's office also processes all incoming requests for extension limits of confinement, also known as ELOC, pertaining to referrals of inmates or detainees for medical other services of special type not available at DOC. Like I mentioned earlier, the director's office is the main receiver of all court documents relative to individuals with regard to confinement or release from confinement and other legal matters concerning DOC, and all documents from the Civil Service Commission pertaining to personnel matters. And lastly, we coordinate the pickup of supplies issued by GSA. Next slide, please. Again, current staffing, the director's office, of course, the director and the deputy director, the ASO, one administrative assistant, a word processing secretary, and a messenger clerk. Next slide. Overall, for the department, we would like to recruit or hire a property supply management officer. Right now, the work is being performed by a corrections officer.
Excuse me, but didn't you have Mr. Mesa in that position before? Because I know he wasn't correction officer, he's retired Army.
Right.
We're in the same
He
branch.
was, yeah, but it's not filled.
So it's vacant.
It's vacant.
And you've got
And I'm
a
I would like
correction
to fill
officer
it.
doing it.
Yes.
Not good, right, Colonel Agun? Bora, I mean, okay.
Okay, we have a personnel officer right now. It's being performed by an administrative assistant. We don't have a payroll clerk, so the administrative assistant also is taking on that duties, along with the word processing secretary. We don't have a computer system analyst to take care of our IT issues. We have a social worker 3 working on it, and a parole officer 2 managing IT for the department. So if we fill these positions, the other civilian staff and security staff assigned to these responsibilities, and it'll allow greater administrative support section to support our DOC employees. Next slide, please. The budget, as the Director Brennan had mentioned earlier, and about the food services, it was appropriated $2 million for. It may change. We have an IFB that's being currently addressed at GSA, so we're just waiting for GSA to run through the IFB and hope we get a vendor by July. Because right now we're running on emergency procurement on a monthly basis while the IFB is being processed.
Since when? Since January?
Since last year, April.
Dale, okay.
We tried to do the IFB, but there was some issues, so we had to redo the IFB. This time we sent it to the AG's office for their review. That one is done, it's completed, so that's phase 1. So phase 2 now is at GSA.
And how responsive is GSA? I'm very curious, how responsive are they with you? Because that one part you said, you go pick up supplies at GSA, really? Because I know that you guys are supposed to be part of the, what's the program with the federal government when you pick up equipment from DRMO? I don't know if that stopped. Are you guys still doing that?
We're
No more?
not eligible under the DRMO.
You're not eligible anymore?
No.
What happened to that one? Because I know that at one point, you guys can pretty much get everything for your dining hall. I mean,
It was DOC was removed, and we were informed that we're not eligible. So DYA is, I don't know why DOC is not.
yeah, that's what I'm leading to, because you're a law enforcement agency, and that's what the LESO program is, Law Enforcement Support Office. And I don't know if Sergeant Tovis is still in charge of that, but when I was at Revenue and Tax, I was the guy that was in charge for Revenue and Tax. And you're more into that, even though we handle a lot of enforcement, but Colonel, check into that, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff that they have down there that can actually help you in a lot of the things you need, that I know Dr. Timanglu would love to make sure the inmate is laying on the right size bed. There's a lot of stuff they have down there. The military rotates equipment every 3 to 4 years. Use or lose. If they don't use it or not, they rotate it out, and on many occasions, some of them are still brand new. And if DOC can get it, if DYA can get it, you should be able to get it. Okay, to include even vehicles. I think at one point, because I remember seeing Mr. Mesa down there. We used to shop together down at Dearmont. We would always compete on who gets there first, gets the equipment. You snooze, you lose. That was the program.
I believe it was in 2016 that we were informed that DOC wasn't eligible too.
Okay,
Because we were trying, we wanted to purchase washers and dryers.
But no, the program I'm talking about, you don't pay for anything.
Right.
You
But
get it for free.
Yeah, we were trying, but we were told about the LESO program. So we were hoping that we would use the LESO program to get the washers and dryers. But that's when we were told that DOC is not eligible.
Colonel, work that with the LESO program. Just find out,
Yes, sir.
and then figure that one out. And
We
if you need-
actually, sir, I did address that with folks off island, and I guess their take on it is that corrections don't have the arresting or apprehension authority.
Would they? When
Yes,
somebody
exactly,
escapes, you have
sir.
to arrest them? It doesn't
Exactly.
make sense.
And we lean heavily in the DRMO to provide us with those items like microwaves, vehicles, refrigerators. Now we're out of the picture, and it's just, the thing about it is DYA's on it. I don't want to put them out like that, but it's just, so we're actually looking to it. I know personally the person in charge there, Mr. Mills.
Okay.
He's with me in the Navy Reserve, so.
And the reason why I'm asking you to please look into that, because if
Yes.
you don't want to use the LESO program, well, we got federal detainees. We've got compact impact folks. This is all caused by the United States government. It's not caused by the people of Guam. So and that's why I'm going to ask you to please look into it, because
Yes.
for every inmate that falls under the federal area or compact impact or whatever that is not your norm, somebody's got to pay for it. The people of Guam can't keep paying for somebody else's imported problem. I hate to say it that way, but the doctor's shaking her head. Thank God she's shaking her head. That's a good sign. Ms. Nauta, please continue.
Okay, so I was just coming down to the food services part. So again, hoping that GSA would complete the phase 2 part for the IFB, so we can get a vendor and don't have to keep doing an emergency procurement. As what the director mentioned earlier about the GMH consolidated agreement, 2.4 million was appropriated in 2019. So it's going to be covered or funded by Compact Assistance Grant for 2020. Now I'll turn over the rest to the director. That's part of the administrative services under the director's office. And if you have any other questions.
No, I'm looking at the other slides. Ma'am, you're going to brief about, I don't know if I think we talked about it already, the overtime.
Yes.
We pretty much talked about the summary of staffing needs, and that's when I mentioned about that if you were funded using the 2019 budget, because already so many millions of dollars are taken off because of federal funds. And even there's going to be a shortfall, we can talk about that one. But at least if you're back to 2019 funding, I think you'll be in better shape than you're going to be based on what's submitted. A lot better. Then we can work and see where else, it's almost as bad as, I think they brought up, you have the farming and stuff. I know that you can start feeding yourself, have your own farm and stuff, and just do this, but you need property. I don't believe you guys have the area to do what you want to be able to do. I mean, there are many things that I know that you have shortfall. But is there anything specific, Madam Director, that you wanted to bring up other than, I can see the numbers here and.
Yes, so clearly in our slides, we provide all of our needs as well as the positions that we want to fill and stuff. We've discussed overtime, and we talked about our shortfall of overtime. Currently, we're trying to reduce overtime. We've done tremendously in reducing it and stuff, but ultimately, it's the recruitment that is the biggest issue for us. If we are able to get up to 30 officers on board, then it would definitely reduce our overtime, but as well as it'll give a reprieve for a lot of our officers. So at this point, we're at the mercy of DOA, and we have talked to them and stuff like that, and they're really doing their due diligence to assist us as well. So we're hopeful to come up with some kind of resolution by the end of this month, where they're going to send out the notices for the written notices for the 140 applicants to start the process for recruitment.
Okay, and what's the turnaround? You hire them today, how many days until they're on the ground working? What's the turnaround?
So there lies a problem. So it's not going to happen overnight. In the event that they go through the process to take the written test, and there's 10 days, then they have a period of them for if they have any kind of appeals, then they have to do the physical agility. They do that, then they get on a list.
I'm looking as if they're already hired, you're a correctional officer
Once hired, then they're going to go through GCC, where they're going to go to the academy.
Okay.
So they'll go to the academy. That could be 3 to 4 months long, depending. We're trying to do it working with GCC. 3 months, we're hopeful. So in the event that we do get them on board by August, hypothetically, and stuff, and they're ready to go, August, September, October, maybe by November that they'll be on board. That's if we get them on board by August. If it's anything later, then of course it's going to be pushed back.
Right. Okay, now, but I remember at one time DOC had they were running their own so-called academy, and I know most of the staff been returned back to the, is there any mechanism in place where you folks take charge other than just GC, just do it?
Well,
the reason why I bring that up, because when I was in the police department, we were at GC, we were at UG, and then went to GC, but there's some shortfalls. The reality is, only a cop can teach a cop how to be a cop. No different as correction. The teacher can only teach what is in theory, but not in reality. And that's just the way I think, okay? So I'm just concerned is that they're gonna go to the, whatever program they have at GC, when they come out, is there a program that you're gonna run them through that, not just the basic OJT, because that's expected no matter what, but is there a course that every new recruit is going to go through to understand the language of Department of Correction? I hope you understand where I'm coming from. It's no different than you did in the marshals, I guess, also.
I do. And at this point, because of the post-certification that we have to meet, so a lot of those courses is the same for all law enforcement officers. So everybody has to go through that at GCC in order to get the certificate. So once they get that, and then working with, as you said, the on-the-job training, that will come back into the office. But working with our deputy director and our trainings and staff and stuff, they'll be able to put them through some other courses and stuff to get them prepared to come on board.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll open the questions, and I'll start with the oversight chair first. And we should be able to wrap this up pretty quick.
Let me just rephrase the thing on the post with the recruitment. Could we combine the post training with the recruitment? If you hire and you take them in, can we combine that with the post requirements so we can have them just certified upon graduation? Can we do that?
Those are our intentions, that they go to GCC and they complete it, and then when they're done, they'll be post-certified and they'll be ready to go. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, but do we have to get the concurrence from GCC to combine the post requirements, the training, with that of the DOC officers undergoing training? Can we do that? Because I think it'd be, because you just mentioned that it's easier said than done. Because, you know, you mentioned November as the month that you're going to be able to complete those recruitment. But if we're going to go back and think about this, because, you know, they need to be post-certified before they even assume the duties and responsibilities as correction officers. So which is going to come first? What I'm saying here is that can we combine it rather than just going with the training for post-certification and then going after that going to the correction officers training? Can we work something out and just combine the two trainings at one time? Because I don't think we're going to meet the recruitment, the numbers of recruitment that we wanted to recruit up to even November or whatever.
Well, I'll say, so at GCC, they have an apprenticeship program that's directed towards correction officers. So that's one of the things they'll do is when they're attending GCC to go towards get post-accreditation, they'll also be attending the apprenticeship program. So it'll be simultaneous.
Or simultaneous, not combining at just one time. When you mention simultaneous, we're talking about taking this post certification and then going into the to the police training. I mean the correction training. What I'm saying is that combine it at one time, and what they're undergoing the correctional officers training, just make the post requirement be a part of that training.
Absolutely, sir. We're working with GCC, and we will definitely try and move it forward in that direction.
Senator Moylan, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the population and just continuing to grow, so I'm wondering, previously they had the program where the prior administration would commute the sentence and then deport, right? Do you recall how many were sent off island?
There were 77.
77?
Yes.
Is that a program that is helpful to reduce the population, and are we looking at re-implementing that program?
At this point, I'm going to defer to the Chief Parole Officer to respond to that.
That decision about continuing the program will probably have to come from the governor. Because what the previous governor did is those that were already ordered deported were the ones coming before the pardon review or the committee for the governor to grant that commutation to time served. It wasn't anybody that has a detainer, it's people that were already ordered for deportation. That's what that program entailed. I know they were talking about people that have a detainer, present them. The one the governor commuted were the ones that were already ordered by INS for deportation. So it's a matter of reducing their time, commute their time to time served, then become INS jurisdiction, and INS will ship them out.
Would you have an idea of the current population, how many would fit in that category?
I won't be able to give you that data. The folks that were putting that together, compiling that, was Ms. Tayama. They did a good job. And what happened there was the governor looked at, they would have served 70%. Then as time got to a crunch, they were even going down the latest, I think, 30% of their time. So that's...
Would this be helpful?
To reduce population, yes.
Is that something?
But I don't know the total numbers now that are ordered deported, because that ended in December. So I don't know if there's new people that have come that are already ordered for deportation. I wouldn't know the numbers at this time.
Would you like to see that program return?
Yes, I'd like to see it return, but I think they should require them to serve more time than going down to 30%. At least 60% of their time they served and deport.
Can I add something to that? Because I was talking to somebody else that is very well versed on the agreement between the FSM and the Department of Interior. And there's three things that they come out with within that agreement. And the first one is medical. The second one is going to school. The third one is having a job.
Yes, sir.
And the fourth one is that they're guests to come here. They're only guests. And the thing is, I've written to the, I haven't sent it out yet because I have to be careful on this one. And I've written to the President of the United States to renegotiate that agreement and make Guam be a part of that agreement so that we can express the things that we need to express in as far as, how we live here in Guam, being within the democratic society. So I'm asking the President to have the Secretary of Interior review that agreement, because that is the only way, because, we're having a hard time trying to send those people off island that are incarcerated. So we need that agreement reevaluated and then coming strongly with the things that we want to do. Because Chamorros are not prejudiced. They're not racist. But, with the incident that happened the other day and the other incidents where several people have been actually killed, we need to do something about it. So I'm going all the way up. And I know that the governor and the mayors are working on a system to bring the families together. But I don't know if that thing will work, because the thing is, a lot of this incident is alcohol related. And even if your parents is telling you, don't do this, don't do that. If you drink beer and vodka, you're going to lose your mind. So the thing is, we need to do something about this. It's going to be unconstitutional to restrict, anybody from drinking alcohol. But I'm doing something about this, and hopefully the President would give us the opportunity to be part of that agreement. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. I don't know, for me, if you're supposed to come here for education, health, or employment, if you don't meet those three, you should be just sent back up to the airport and leave. We don't need for you to commit a crime for us to figure out the computation and serve 60%. No. You should just be put back on a plane. If you don't have a place to live, you didn't sign up for education, you're not getting medical attention, turn right around and get back on the plane, or go to Hawaii or California. You do not need to stay on Guam. I'm not trying to be racial. I'm just saying, that's a real thing. If you're invited to come, follow the rules of engagement, man. Come on. Because when we go to their place, we don't do what they do here. And that's just me. But anyway, Senator Munoz, do you have something you wanted to ask?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say that, but, I'm leaving it up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had an opportunity to work with the people at DOC in 2016 when I was working under the former Lieutenant Governor's office in the Public Safety Division, and I had an opportunity to witness all the hard work that you all put in, and even the resilience that you've developed. And I was even thinking when Ms. Tayama was talking about that stepchild, that was my thought, that within the Public Safety Division, people tend to forget about the officers at DOC until something happens, and then the attention is drawn to you. So I can see how some of the shortfalls have become like a normal incidence for you already, and that's why in your budget it shows that why are we going to keep asking for more when this is all we're going to get, right? So, but it's very rare that you see a panel here where we're all saying, ask us for more, because we know you need it, So I just want to commend you for all the hard work. I know you all have an important job to do, but maybe for either Ms. Tayama or Dr. Taminglu, has there been an exploration for dog-assisted therapy programs? I mean, is there anything in the budget that may even be able to assist with some of the therapy, maybe working with GAIN? Or I'm sure it probably wouldn't cost that much, but have you explored that avenue with the dog-assisted therapy?
No, although it's been found to be effective in many jurisdictions. The problem is staffing. To do therapy and programs, you have to have adequate staffing. and then to identify who would be caring for the dogs, all those processes, that's like an added layer, at least for my area. But it's been found to be effective in many jurisdictions, but with our staffing shortage in both of our areas, it's not our primary goal, at least mine. Ms. Tayama can speak on the rest.
In addition to the staffing shortage, we really just need more space. We need a new prison. We are piled on top of each other, and a lot of times, even if we're available to rotate groups, we can't because we have nowhere to conduct group. So,
Okay, so,
We don't have enough meeting rooms, classrooms, in addition to having the staff to run all the programs. So that's one of our concerns.
and as Warden stated earlier, we work really closely together. If you're looking at the SOP, actually for every group or for every number of inmates that are participating, we should have security staff there with us to help monitor. But we just go in there and we do it on our own because we really want to make it happen. So.
Well, I mean,
on
I
all
don't-
areas, we are shortfall, and we're doing the best that we possibly
I
can.
definitely wouldn't want to pile any more work on what little you already have, but maybe like a collaboration with Gain, who has the knowledge of what to do with animals, and maybe have a conversation and see where and how they can assist you in maybe implementing a program such as that, which has been
that's-
proven to work.
That's a wonderful suggestion.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Ms. Peggy Denny
And-
we've had that discussion with Ms. Denny before, and maybe Major Uggan can speak more about it.
Yeah, the K-9 did come up before, and again, it's a program. It would be a program. They would have to go through ACC. We were thinking of doing it like in a partnership with Gain, so we would have just a second location on our compound, be overseen by Gain, and then we would be able to get like customs officers or other K-9 people to help come in and train the inmates on how to care for these dogs and do basic training. So we have talked about that. And again, a lot of it is we get engaged in it, and then of course, with the lack of personnel and other priorities, and so we have to shift our focus on other areas. And so it kind of falls by the wayside. But even the warden and I, we have talked about several things like that, and having the inmates help Gain do these things, and being able to see an inmate train a dog to the point where he's giving the dog away and he's being emotional about it, and it would help him in his rehabilitation to care for somebody other than himself.
I think it's a win-win situation if we can accommodate, because some of those dogs end up getting euthanized, and rather than euthanizing them, we could utilize them to rehabilitate some of our inmates that maybe mentally could work with them.
Like I said, we have discussed it. A lot of it just comes down to resources. Just having the resources to fulfill it and carry it out.
Okay.
When I think of the therapy, it's not for the benefit of the dog. It's for the benefit of the individual who is mentally ill or having difficulties. So that's a whole different program that I was thinking of. I apologize.
Okay. Okay, well, at least it's good to know that the discussion has been made, and then maybe we can, eventually, once we prioritize what's important now and take care of what we need to now, then something that we can develop in the future. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Senator Castro, do you have a few questions you wanted to answer?
Just a couple of statements, perhaps one more in jest and one serious note. I guess this is very enlightening for me. In one hand, you can't really place the label. I have a good Democrat on my left who's very conservative, wants to ship people out, right, for creating the most heinous crimes. And you have a good Republican on my right who's very liberal and very humanitarian in her thoughts. And so it just teaches me to stay focused on the conversation at hand. I am concerned, and I do think it's a mistake to continue the deactivation of SORT. SORT, for the listening audience, is a Special Operations Response Team. I know they're a highly skilled force, highly trained, very specialized, and capable of responding to some of the most critical moments in law enforcement operations, especially when working with other agencies, law enforcement agencies. I'm fully aware, especially with the Deputy Director's experiences in the past, of SORT, working with SWAT and other specialized units of law enforcement throughout the government. For example, when there's prison breakouts or some other things in the community, joint agency, narcotics interdiction. But I was encouraged, Director, thank you so much, for allowing your staff to communicate directly with us. I was encouraged to learn that this was done because of the shortage of manpower, and that this is not, in fact, a philosophical direction of the administration, that in fact it's in response to the shortage of manpower. And once manpower is restored, not only will SORT, but your Internal Affairs Division would be restored. And I want to encourage that. And so, like the good Chairman of Finance and the Oversight Chairman encouraged us to look if there's an opportunity to bring additional revenues. Oh, and by the way, for the record, I'm not one of those sitting up here to encouraging to ask me for more. I'm encouraging to help us find more ways to generate revenue given the current fiscal state of affairs of the territory. But thank you, Director, for your professional presentation and your first-class presentation with your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Castro. And no, I'm not trying to chase people out of Guam. Guam, we welcome you all, okay? I have 5 questions for the director or for any other staff here. They're really simple questions, okay? So don't think too hard of it. Based on the federal program inventory, the form, the BBMR FP-1, there are 2 grants expiring on September 30th, 2019 for the following programs: Prison Rape Elimination Act, Grant Program, and State Criminal Alien Assistance Program. Have you applied to renew those grants?
Pardon me, the
it's
PREA
a-
grant,
right.
and then the SCAP grant.
Right.
Yes, we have.
Okay. And how will these programs be funded in 2020? On the grants, how is that going to impact your budget in any form or in any fashion?
So in the PREA grant,
Right.
majority of the funding for there goes towards our cameras and our computers, and it's not necessarily for any kind of manpower, but it's to assist us with our inmate population.
Okay.
So the Prison Rape Elimination Act, so that's where the funding will go towards there. In our SCAP grant, that's a grant that we apply for, and then at the end, it's something that we may ask to utilize for different things.
Okay.
The one we're currently using in this fiscal year is we've asked to use it to pay our overtime.
Okay. Have you thought of applying for a grant from GURA? Every year on April 5th, there's the deadline for grants to build facilities. I happen to oversee also GURA, so I'm just concerned that if one of your staff can work with them, reach out to Mr. Tapaz and says, how can you help us?
Yes, sir. So, as I stated earlier, once we get our master plan,
Okay.
and we look at it from that perspective, then we're going to be able to work with GURA to see what they can offer for us, as well as I was approached by Mr. Joe Diego from, I believe, his small USDA, and he says,
Right.
Sam, I have money for you. I said, okay, we're going to come and see you then.
Yeah.
As well as I had a conversation with the Chief Judge, Frances Adigu Gatewood. She's bringing the Bureau of Prisons out, and we're going to have a meet and greet so that they can look at our facility and perhaps help us to move forward in a state-of-the-art facility. So I have done some groundwork and some legwork and some speaking to these individuals, and so we're hopeful that down the road that we're able to accomplish this and build a new state-of-the-art facility.
Great. I was going to ask that question, but I'll skip that question. I'll go to something else. Okay. Skip the master plan. Cost per prisoner. In FY 2011, the DOC reported cost per prisoner was $119 per day. However, OPA found that the amount was not accurately calculated for several reasons, including a flawed methodology and a weak accounting infrastructure. OPA report number 14-03. You're aware of that, Ms. Nauta, right? What has DOC done to improve their ability to accurately calculate its cost per prisoner?
I'm going to defer to Major Elgin to respond to that question.
Okay.
Yes, so the audit in 2014, we came up with our own average of what it costs, average per prisoner, okay, based on our budget and our numbers. When the OPA came in, they were having a hard time really nailing it down because our data was inconsistent as far as our head counts and how we were keeping track of inmates. It did recommend at one point that we hire like a statistician or something to better manage our numbers, but with that not being done, what we are doing, at least with our head counts and our daily populations, I am keeping better track of it. We are tracking it a lot more. Our system now, we can get more accurate information out of our database. In the past, it was, although we had it, it was not being updated properly.
So what is it now? I mean, what has it been for the past 3 years since that? Where are you at now? What is it per prisoner?
Well, we haven't really sat down yet. One of the also things that we're currently working on, the director's working on the front office, is the per diem rate reimbursement for the federals. That was also brought up in that report, is that our reimbursement rates have not been adjusted for more than 15 years, I believe. So we're currently working on that, and then once that's in place, then we could probably sit back down with the OPA and see if they can come in and assist us again in maybe helping us come up with a final number of what it would really cost, because a lot of it just has to do with data collection and looking at all the different expenditures.
Maybe the department just write to the OPA and ask for assistance today, because it'll take them a while to get to you.
Right.
Don't wait until you're ready.
Yeah.
Just ask them, because by the time they get to you,
Yeah.
you'll probably be ready. Just try to speed up the process. It's a slow boat to China, so
It is.
get on the boat now and enjoy the ride. Okay, according to the PDN, total of 499 checks totaling 490 million will be mailed out Friday. The checks for the overtime. What is the funding source for these overtime payments for DOC? And how much is it under DOC? It's coming out of your budget, right? And how much does that total cost?
So for 8086, which we paid out last Friday, it was, I believe, $622,000. That was paid 190 checks that went to our prior officers, those individuals that resigned or retired, and unfortunately we had some that were deceased. So 190 checks were cut and it was paid out. The money that was used came from our current budget because we have not recruited the up to 30 individuals. We were going to have some lapse funds, so I utilized that funding in order to meet that obligation. However, moving forward, we definitely will have enough money to guide us to the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
It was just being creative, sir, and then working with BBMR and the front office. So we're truly grateful for that.
Please be creative, because, we won't know until we hear about it, and then we're looking at it on our side, and we're like, where did the money come from? They said they're short, they want to hire, but anyway. Special revenue funds. For the last several years, you have been appropriated funds from the DOC Inmate Revolving Fund and the Safe Street Act. For example, in FY 2018, the DOC Inmate Revolving Fund had an appropriation of 1.4 million, while revenue collection amounted to 1 million, or a 30% variance. Likewise, in 2018, the Safe Street Fund appropriated 259,000, yet revenues were 24. Is it likely the same trend will follow? Are you aware that these funds have not been performing at the levels appropriated? Most of the funds in GovGuam, just to let you know, are not meeting what everybody thinks they're going to meet. So I'm concerned. Are you aware of the trend today? The direction you guys are heading? The street light, the Safe Street, and the other funds identified. The Inmate Revolving Fund.
The Safe Streets Act is actually, we labeled it as the housing for incarcerated persons. So what the monies that we have been utilizing, it is, we buy all kinds of like cleaning materials, uniforms.
I'm not questioning you what you're using it for. Is that if the money's not going into the fund,
Right.
and there's a shortfall, how are you going to work this? How are you managing this? Because I know you're going to be creative. You're going to find a way to take care of your agency. I'm just concerned is that if the funds are not coming in as expected, how are you going to work this in the agency? Because, you're going to have to do some tossing around. And Dr. Tamago will probably have to sit down and give you some clinical evaluation. I mean, not correction, I'm just teasing with you, Doc.
Well, definitely then the vacant positions, all vacant positions would not definitely be funded. And anytime an employee or an officer resigns, then we can't fill that. And that's going to have to be where we're going to divert some of the funding to operations. That's worst case scenario if those special funds don't come in. Otherwise, the governor and the budget will have to assist us in finding additional funding, or we'll come to your door and ask you for additional funding.
Ask the governor first for her to use her transfer authority before you come to us, because when you come to us, we'll be reaching out over to her and ask her the same thing. Transfer some money and take care of your agency.
Right.
Because until you bring in more money in collection, we can't appropriate. And everybody needs to understand this across the board. As everybody seems to have the impression that there's a lot of money coming in, there can be a lot of money coming in, but if we don't appropriate the money, you can't spend it.
Right.
And that's what we're concerned about, is that, everybody's thinking, the governor of Guam is bringing in, additional $23 million? Yeah, great. We're in June. We don't know if in June, July, August, September, collection's going to maintain that pace. And if it doesn't, that $23 million has to be spread across for the next 4 months. And if your funds are not coming in, then you need to ask Department of Administrations and BBMR says, hey, share some of the pie, because you can't be left in the dark. Okay, so I just want to make sure you're reaching out. And actually, I probably have 2 more questions here, but I'm going to save that and just send that to you, Director, and then maybe the oversight chair and myself will contact you and we'll sit down and go over some of the numbers a little bit, and we start to see how we can help you. And I'm not saying like Senator Munoz said, this is the first panel asking you to identify. No. You asked for 26 in 2019. Today it's 24. And why? Because there's federal money that's covering that 1.8.
Yes.
All I'm saying is keep you at 2019. Maybe that's the direction you need to go. Every time you get a federal grant, don't reduce your budget. Keep it, because you need to fill the vacancies. You need to fill the shortfalls. You need to get yourself back on track and running. Not trying to figure out where to go. Because when you're going to decide the building of your new prison, federal government's only going to give you so much, and you still have to come up with something. Now, if they give you all the funding, God bless us all. That's going to help everybody overall. Okay, is there any other questions, or is there anybody here that would like to testify on behalf of the Department of Correction? I guess not.
I just have one final
Yes, ma'am.
statement.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody for being here. Senator Moylan, you did come in late, so I did not acknowledge you, but thank you for being here, as well as you, Senator Muñoz. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We look forward to you giving us all the money that we're asking for, and then some of the supplemental. So we truly appreciate it, and we are totally grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There being no one else yet to testify, the fiscal year 2020 budget hearing of Department of Correction has concluded. It is now 11:19. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com. Excuse me for your attendance and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing is now adjourned at 11:19. And in 5 minutes, we will begin the hearing on Bill 130-35, which is introduced by Senator Therese M. Terlai, an act to appropriate $150,000 from the Healthy Future Funds to the Department of Administration for the continued operation of the Guam Autism Center, and to repeal Public Law 35-9 in its entirety. Thank you.